Campbell's comments now, something different. Catching up with Steve Travaglia. Firstly, hello, mate.
Hey, mate. How you going?
Good. Lift that microphone up for me. Otherwise,
Sorry.
people won't hear it. But known you for probably too long.
Yeah, it's been a while. I was thinking about that the other day. How long we've known it? It'd have to be 25 years.
And some.
And some, probably.
Yeah, unfortunately for us both, we are getting a little bit older. You are one of the main men behind Roll the Dice Syndicate.
Yep, one of the three directors, myself, Lee and Rob, all directors of Roll the Dice, so yeah.
With my harness racing hat on, I like to make people think a little bit differently, if you like, and think outside the square. Syndicates don't get used a lot, but you had an interest, I suppose, in the harness horses with Russ Shishka, Ricky McIntosh, and that going back moons ago.
Yep.
You dabbled in a couple and the likes, but you've sort of changed that whole, I suppose, your whole model, haven't you?
Yeah, well, we did. Well, that's how I kind of got started out with Russ, and it's helped me greatly from where I am now, because I can handle horses, and I'm no genius at it or anything like that, but I know my way around a horse enough to be able to float them around the place, which helps our business, and also be able to, obviously communicate with trainers and stuff like that. So that helped a lot. But yeah, harness racing was my, I still love it now. Yeah, it was great fun back then with your brother and Brad Jensen, and obviously Russ was huge, and then Ricky. We had some good times, some good stories back then. Going to the races with no money and generally working out with less somehow. But that was heaps of fun, going to Charlton, all those places around there. So it was good.
It is one of the things that I get frustrated at. As I said, I try to promote horse people, and I want people to think differently, if you like. That's one of the things. And harness racing is so much fun, and there are so many great people in it in the leagues, but we seem to lose those for whatever reason, and I don't know why that is, but you have to I suppose accept that as an industry, and realise that we've got to stop and try and do things a little bit differently.
Well, you probably do, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's a financial kind of decision for a lot of people, isn't it? It's a tough, hard game, harness racing. Incredible horse people in it. There's a lot that are starting to do a lot of work in the thoroughbred industry as well. But yeah, if you can't make a decent living out of it, or some kind of living for the hours that they put in, I suppose at some stages it breaks for certain people, and they go and try and do something else. But I mean, obviously, turnover and all that stuff with prize money and that might, doesn't help your industry as much as ours as well. But I mean, that's all for other people to kind of work out in that situation. But to getting people into horses, obviously, it's a kind of a sport of kings what we do, and it's a multi-billion-dollar business. So there's always people around all over, not just Australia, but all over the world that race in the thoroughbred industry. So it makes it a little bit easier from our side of it to do what we do. And
that's one question I will get to you in a minute, because it must have been daunting what you did. Did you own a thoroughbred before you became part of this syndicate? Or
yeah, we leased. So if you want to go right back, Russ, horse dentist, I used to go with him. We'd travel around and I'd hold a few horses for him, and we'd go from Bendigo, work up through Swan Hill, and do all horses' teeth up that way. End up in Adelaide. Had a mate over in Adelaide that had a pub, so me and Russ would have a few days off and spend all the money that we'd earned. Then we'd come back through, and we'd stay at Weary's when he was at Stall. So we'd get back there, and Weary was just working with a few broken down horses. Oh, he had a few horses by then, but we'd stay there for a night. And yeah, that's where we kind of met Weary, and then Weary was just leasing a few, and we got into a few lease horses with a few mates. So Weary go, I've got this one with a lease, and I'd get a few mates into it. And then, obviously had a little bit of success and a bit of fun. It was kind of similar we were doing in the harness racing industry. We'd go up to Stall or somewhere like that for the day, and we'd have a bet on our horse and do all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where it started. And then from there, and that was a long time ago, obviously. And then from there, Weary might go to the sales and buy a cheapie for $7 or $8 that we might jump in, and he'd say to me,
yearling or Tridos?
Yearling most times.
Yep.
The Tridos we didn't really dabble in, but the yearlings, it was most times. And then he'd be, just get some mates into it. So we did, and we just had our mateship group that we're still all mates with now, and that's kind of how it worked out. We had some slow ones, and we had some ones that went okay. But we do that. We must have done it every year for, 10 years, just one horse, and just got mates into it. And it kind of evolved from there a little bit, and that's how it kind of all started anyway.
Much success?
Oh, yeah, yes and no. We had a few that went okay. A couple that got sold on. We were paying our way, as in, it wasn't
Weren't
costing us
losing
too
work.
much.
Yep.
Yeah, I might have been tipping in 2 or 3 grand a year just in training fees and stuff like that, but it wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah, we weren't making any money out of it or anything like that. It was just a bit of fun. We'd go to the races and hopefully Weary tip us a winner, and we'd have a bet and all that kind of stuff, which didn't always work out as well.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You're flown by the seat of your pants for a while. Roll the dice, like it was through the National Hotel. I think a lot of you guys were drinking around. Am I right or not?
No. Roll the dice racing was before that. So we had a couple of horses. So basically, I decided I was working in another business. I had a graphic designer. I decided, I love the colours kind of side of things, even with the harness racing and that. So I thought, we'll get away and see the colours, done up. We only ever had 1 or 2 horses going around. So we got those colours done up, and we kind of came up. I was talking to, one of the directors, Lee, and we kind of came up, we might as well roll the dice and have a crack at this and get some colours done up. And that's how it all came up. And so we had the dices put on the silks, and we just liked the colours, and that's how it kind of rolled from there. And then, we kind of...
So the syndicate wasn't formed at that stage? The colours come first?
So we'd registered a syndicate, just roll the dice syndicate, so that's different to roll the dice racing. So we had that, and we might take 10% in a horse, and Weary might have found 70% or something like that. But if Weary said you took 20%, you could have your colours go around. So there was only a couple going around, and we had a little bit of success. We had a mare, Truffle. She won a few, won one in town, and it all kind of changed when Mahuta came along. So by that stage, we were getting a few more people in, like people were asking and stuff like that. Again, we weren't doing it properly, but a horse called Mahuta came along, and I think it won 6 straight, won the Magic Millions, and that stage, Racing Victoria, and thoroughbred syndication is very heavily governed. So by that stage, they got us and dragged us in because we weren't officially doing it all properly and stuff like that, and they gave us a bit of an ultimatum and said, do it properly, or change what you're doing and just don't syndicate at all. So that's what we did.
Was that daunting?
Oh, it was at first, but Mick Leonard, who was Weary's advisor over at Ballarat, kind of pulled us in, and we had a chat about it, and it was because we had no money. I had my business, and Lee was working where he was, and Rob was in another job. Well, Rob wasn't in the business. He was then, sorry. So it was a little bit because we had no financial backing. You can go and buy a horse at the sales on spec, which is what you do.
Yeah.
You spend 40 or 50 grand. And at that stage, we had no reputation with them. So it was either they give you 30 days to get the money, or the horse comes back and you basically fall over straight away. So we spoke to Mick. Mick kind of put us on to a couple of people to talk to, because you either have to be basically an accountant to get a syndicator's license, or you can go as a third tier underneath somebody else. So we work with Stable Connect, who work with a lot of syndicators now. So from there, we kind of set the process in place, and Racing Victoria was super. They helped us all through it because they wanted us to succeed, because the more syndicators, the more people in racing, and the more obviously they get more participation, more people through the doors. So that's actually
key, because you said there before that they hauled you in, and I'm thinking, oh geez, I hope you didn't get into trouble. But they did haul you in, but they actually hauled you in and said, listen, let's do it properly, so you can then be a part of the industry.
100%. Yep. Yeah. So no, when I say haul was probably not the right word, but yeah, we came in and
sounds better. Sells more books.
So it does. Yeah. It came in and it was it worked really well. We had it set up properly within 3 or 4 months, which was good. Mahuta, I think, went on. I don't think it won another race, to tell you the truth. He got a little bit sore over the back, and just things went awry. We ended up working around with him, and he ended up getting sold to stud 8 months, 10 months later. But we walked away, and then obviously we went to the sales companies and we bought a few. It was a couple of horses. I think we bought RDD2 for 55 grand. So in that process, Darren had 2 bloodstock agents, John Foote, who's a world-renowned bloodstock agent, and has obviously one of the leading bloodstock agents in Australia, and also Jeremy Rogers was his stable or his foreman at the time. So, but he was also in Bloodstock, was a Bloodstock agent himself who worked at Waikato Stud, and we struck up a really good relationship with Jeremy. I personally did, and he started just kind of tinkering around and buying a few for Weary because Weary was getting so much bigger, and we could notice. So when Weary was getting so much bigger, we could notice how things were working behind the scenes. So we could see what Jeremy was doing for him, and we could see what John was doing for him. Weary always advised us really well, but we kind of took from that model and went, okay, these are the people we want to really sidle ourselves against when we go to the sales. They're good judges. They pick out horses, purely. We didn't have much money to spend, so pedigree wasn't massive on our agenda. It was more the type of horse. So we went down that track, and it worked really well. They picked out some, horses that were really serviceable and did a good job, right through from, RDD to Anjana. It won a couple of listed races. There was some really nice horses went through. A few got sold to Hong Kong, and we kind of established a small base, but we did it all on spec, and there was no money in the bank, so that was the hard part. Yeah, it was at some stages. I was trying to run another business in Bendigo as well.
Plus, you got a young family.
Yeah, I had 3 boys at home. Lee was doing what he was doing, and Rob was pretty flat out as a manager, a sales manager at a fairly big company in Melbourne. And it was we're doing it kind of bits and pieces and trying to all do it as we go. And then I don't know, I went to my wife actually, and we'd had our 3rd child, and he was 3 or 4 or whatever, and I just said, I want to do this full time, and spoke to my dad, who I was in business with, and they both said go for it. She went back to work, and we had a crack because it was just getting too much for the 3 of us and what we're doing, and we weren't doing it properly. So I went to Mick and Weary and said, I'm going gung-ho at this. We're going to have a fair crack at it, and they support us all the way through, because there was a year there where we couldn't sell any horses, and Weary and we'd done our money with the sales companies, and Darren just said, no, you'll be right, I'll back yous. Yeah, we'll get you through. You're only one good horse away from going well. And, obviously RDD2 came out, won a couple, and our colours just started getting out there, and Darren was getting harder and harder to get to, right, his communications and stuff, whereas I could still bring that communication to the people. So we piggybacked off him a fair bit, and set everything up the way we kind of wanted it, and then from there it just kept going, and we kept having really good consistency, and we had a great ownership base, which we still have now right from the start, and they started bringing other people in because they were enjoying what they were doing. If it was going to the races, or we'd run a function, or we'd have an open day, they really loved that. They loved that they could pick up the phone and talk to us straight away. So it grew from there, and then once I was in the business full time, there was no looking back kind of thing, because we'd sold our other business, and Lee was still flat out where he was, and that. So I was either sink or swim. I had to make it work, so it worked.
So it sounds like it's hard. One of the things I want to open eyes up to every person, know that it's hard.
Yep.
But if you have the right people around you, by the sounds of things, and they can support you. You said there, Weary basically carried you by the sounds at a period of time where things weren't going quite right. He's like, nah, it'll be fine, and go from there. So it nearly needs, even though it's a syndicate, you guys come in as a syndicate, you need to have that support avenue, even from Racing Victoria, because they've supported you. They've said, listen, we want you guys in the industry. Just do it properly.
Yep. You do. I suppose that's anything in business, life, football clubs. If you can put the right people around you and then back what you've done and trust them and everything like that, things tend to work out. Lee's massive on that. Lee Saville, the business partner, and Rob's the same. We try and put out the right people around us. Josh was a real big help here at Bendigo when we were doing a lot of pre-training and stuff like that. He helped me with the knowledge of horse speak, making sure that I was saying the right things and the right horses were coming through. If we found one here, Josh, generally one that hadn't been sold and it came through here, like Anjana was a really good example. He was great with an update we'd send out to people, because he'd go, geez, I really like this filly, she moves well, and that'd help us sell the last part of it, and we try to be really upfront and honest with all the horses that we've got. So just things like that helped enormously to go forward and move forward and everything like that. So that was seeing how you surround yourself with the right people. Generally, it tends to work, and people that you can trust too is really important for us.
Yeah, I reckon they're great, but I like the fact everyone getting behind you, and you mentioned Josh there.
Yep.
We're in Josh Julius's stables
Yep.
here. There will be a stable chat would have gone out actually before this interview because this one's going to be a lot longer.
Yep.
Finding people like Josh, though, also in your backyard, because I mean, I don't think we're disrespectful. Josh, is someone that's starting out, if that makes sense, and trying to evolve. So to find someone that's as passionate about rehoming horses, does a lot of your pre-training as well. So, I mean, it's not rehoming, getting owners into them and things like that. That's also got to be key to it.
Yeah, it does. Or you also got to trust people that, suggest Josh. So Josh came from Warrnambool. Obviously, Bendigo's not a massive training base here. People tend to struggle here for one reason or other. I'm not sure. I think the club's doing a really good job but Josh definitely hasn't struggled here. I don't know why people would, but he came here. He came with a reputation. He wanted to work. He had empty boxes and he wanted horses here. It was convenient for me because if I had 5 horses here, I wasn't driving around all over the place trying to catch up. Weary, he was doing pre-training for Weary, which a few people did, and Weary just gave instructions on how he wanted it done. He knew exactly what he was doing, Josh. So it helped us a lot. I could do updates across, walking across the track or whatever else, and if I had to float one somewhere, we went through the process, and he was confident he could put horses in, and I'd start floating horses around from here, which made it a lot easier as well. So that was just one part of the process and the story, I suppose.
How big's Roll the Dice now?
So we've got 65 horses syndicated. A lot of those are young horses we haven't seen hit the track. We don't tend to buy really young 2-year-olds. I mean, Profiteer is probably the exception to that, but we don't really buy a lot. If they go early as a 2-year-old, that's fine, but we've got a lot of horses that are late 2-year-olds now that are starting to come through and starting to show some really nice signs and stuff like that. But we have got probably 15 to 20 horses that have raced, maybe 25, I didn't really count that up, that have raced out of that 65. So there's a lot of young horses that are coming behind us again now.
Is that a juggle to keep your numbers? Like, is there a number?
Yeah, there was a number that we kind of did it. So Rob's full time in the business now as well. So it's myself and Rob, and I think the number was 50. Once we did all the work, that was the number. We get to 50 and kind of keep it somewhere around there, which means you have to go and buy probably 10 to 15 every year at the sales. We went down a bit of a model as well where people can be a little bit impatient, and you never know what you're getting at a yearling sale. So we did go down the model of buying a few over in New Zealand, which has been really successful for us. But the beauty of doing that is you can buy a 2-year-old over in New Zealand, late 2-year-old that's done all the work. They're great horse people over there, so you can bring them over here and you're racing in 4 months' time. You've bought a share in a horse and you're racing 4 months' time. So that's another model we do, and that really increased our numbers from around 50 kind of to up to 60 really quickly, because there's a massive appetite out there for people that want to do that.
And have fun, and that's the one thing that you guys do. Profiteer, you mentioned Sydney. The one thing that I noticed on Sydney through Facebook and the social media feeds, you guys had fun. Like, I mean, you were there, and the nerves, I believe you might have been nearly sick, or you didn't sleep by all accounts the night before.
Oh, look, probably that was because I had a few too many beers the night before.
So Russ said.
I was pretty nervous. I gave Russ a ring before it. There was a fair bit on the line. There was $20 million on the line for us. So, it wasn't like you got a lot of sleep. I did have a few Coronas the night before, and Dad came up. Dad had a little share in the horse, which was really nice. He was a nice horse for us because, Josh started out with him and did a lot of work early with him. It's like there was a lot of good stories out of that, but we had a lot of people in it. And it's amazing when you get a good one. You look at the ownership base and it's like 35 or whatever. But I swear there was 120 people up there, so I don't know where they all came from, but it was good fun. We took a bus from the city out to where was it? It wasn't Rose Hill, it was the other one.
Randwick.
No, it was Rose Hill, sorry. Out to Rose Hill, and it was a 70-seater bus, and it was jammed. I reckon it was 85 of us on there. So it was nerve-wracking. You try and forget about all the other stuff behind it, but when you got the favour for a gold slipper, it's a pretty big deal.
Is that his bigger thrill?
No. The biggest thrill was Crane winning the Coolmore Group 1. She was a horse that Jeremy bought at the Ready to Run sales. Rosemont Stud had a share in her, and they put her up, and we bought her. She was a lovely filly. She was by Eurozone. I think he's only ever thrown 2 winners, and she was one. But she was Yeah, she was the emotional. I actually watched that with my son, Tobes. Everyone was out and he'd finished playing footy and we're home and he's like, what's this race, Dad? Because he's not into it at all. And I think Rob was up there, Lee wasn't. But, she was a horse that had been, Weary had started with her and won a listed race with her. She'd been to Mick Price. And Mick Price he won a listed race with her up in Sydney, beat a really good horse, Classique Legend up there. And then we thought we'd put her through the broodmare sales at Magic Million, so we spoke to Anthony Mithen and we said we'll send her up to Tony Gollan and she can have a couple of runs up there, and she just jumped out of the ground up there. And so she was the biggest thrill. She came back and won 3 in a row. I think she won the Magic. We took her to the Magic Millions fillies race up there, and she won at 50 to 1. And we knew she was a really good filly. When she got through, it was a great ride. And then we took her and she won her next start, and then she goes into a Group 1 race, and you'd love to be able to call yourself Group 1 syndicators. We've gone close with Mahuda a few times, that was our biggest thrill by far. I had a fair few beers at home, and Toby was like, oh, is that a Group 1? And so I gave him a big hug, and that was pretty big.
I imagine that would be great though, sharing it with your son, and probably just the two of you would be brilliant.
Yeah, it was. He wouldn't have even been, it was only that coincidence he was walking past. I was watching the race. Giles was out, and I didn't make a big deal. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, because he actually first hadn't shown any interest at all, but it was good. And then obviously the phone calls start, and the boys up in Sydney were having a hell of a good time. But that was my biggest thrill personally. We've had bigger monetary wins, and
that's half what the journey's about. And it's one of the things like with syndications and all the rest. And you see a lot of them, and they're all about making money and the bottom dollar. But what I see of you guys, what I said, your social media feed when you guys were in Sydney, it was serious. I think there was a picture of the table and everything else. There was a couple of serious, and there was a couple bit loose ones where guys were having a bit of fun. And but that's what it's about, though, isn't it?
It is for us, yeah, because we break them down into, you can have 1% share on a horse if you need to. So we haven't got many owners that have got any more than 10%. I don't think might have one owner that's got more than 10%. In a horse. So people get in and, groups of 10 blokes come in, and they'll all buy 1%, but they go to the races, and you can have 1% in a horse, or you can have 20% in a horse, but you get the same thrill. Like Race in Victoria and they encourage people to get through the door, so you've never got any issue if you've got to get tickets. Like we got 100 people into the Golden Slipper. They love people coming through the door because they get through, they spend money, and people get the thrill of it, and everyone can say they own a share in a horse.
Go back a little bit. How many owners were in it? 30?
35 officially.
And you got 100 through.
Yeah,
that's great.
Roughly, yeah.
No, that's an eye-opener. That's what I want to do with these.
Yep.
Mick Price, you mentioned Mick Price there before. He's one person I actually love listening to on the radio. He's so calculated, I think is the right way to put it. Every now and then he'll come out with an outlandish statement. He did one just recently in South Australia, and he retracted it the next day. But he's generally pretty measured about what he says. The way he talks about Ayrton, and what happened and where he went through, and not necessarily, I think, him winning a race, just the ride that horse has given him, if you like a horse that they looked after so well as well at home. There's a real attachment, which I would imagine from the way you syndicate model and the way you guys do it, is actually what you're after. Yeah,
you do. Yeah, I mean, Mick and Mick Price's, we only came, obviously, we left Darren and we came to Mick. He was one of our go-to. I had a meeting with him. He was awesome. More impressively, Mick Kent Jr. He was like, I could just see he had the hunger behind him to do really well and to take the pressure off Mick. I thought it was a really good matchup. But Mick's, he's as honest as they come. We don't always see eye to eye, me and Mick, but
that'd be good though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it is from my point of view. And Junior's really, really good in that respect. But we get along really well. Anything I ask him to do, he does. Everyone knows where you stand with his horses. Like if it's slow, it's slow. If it's got potential, he's one that doesn't like taking them through the grades too much. He'll just throw them in the deep end. He said, I'm here to win listed group races and all that kind of stuff.
Which is now where you guys are after?
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of our owners are, because if you go into a Cox Plate day or whatever and you've got horses running, that's what people want to do, I still like going up to Donald or somewhere like that, but he's honest, he's brutally honest sometimes. Some people don't like it. He says what he thinks, and as I said, he's had years of experience, so most of it's pretty spot on.
He is reasonably calculated.
Yep.
You, as a syndicator though, and as a person that, back in the trots and all the rest, you would have seen, especially with Rick and Sue back in the day, they were patching up a lot of horses that had injuries. To see him get back to the track, you probably had more confidence than a lot of people because you probably realise how tough horses can be.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the standardbreds are a lot tougher than that than thoroughbreds. But yeah. Oh well, I mean, I saw the horse and I knew he was. Look, I'd spoke to a few people. I spoke to Josh, a few other people about it, and yeah, they can go either way. But once they'd got the right antibiotics into him, it was just a matter of keeping him into him, and he was always going to lose a lot of condition. But my worry, and people's worry, was the actual hock. How bad, whether it got that callousing and stuff on the hock to get the movement, and whether that had come back. That was my worry more than anything. And they kept the swelling out of it. And once we knew the leg and everything was fine, yeah, he looked terrible, and the antibiotics had knocked him around a fair bit, but I knew that the people looking after him, Shona Dreschler and Mick, because that was actually in his backyard, I knew they were going to get him back. It just when he was going to get back and whether he had the zest for racing again was no worries, because he was in good hands, so that wasn't an issue.
I will let you go.
Yep. 2
questions. Do you still love it?
Yeah, I do.
Even though it's a lot busier job than what you had?
Yeah, no, it is. It's good. It's different to walking into a business at 8 o'clock and walking out at 5:30. You do have a lot of calls non-stop and you deal with a lot of emotions. I have learnt off the right people to try and just keep your emotions in check a little bit, like all the way through. The highs are really high, but the lows can be kind of really, really low. Trying to keep the expectations down a bit. We always had a model early on of kind of under promise and over deliver. So you never try and talk, yourself, you never try and talk a horse up too much. Because it only ever ends in disaster for one thing or another, even if it's going good early. So we try and keep a pretty level head on it, and I've learnt now to, when I'm watching a race or whatever else, because I could get pretty angry. I've just learnt to keep the emotions in track. It's going to be what it's going to be. You're going to win good races, and you're going to have some luck in it. And like Ayrton in the Stradbroke, you're going to draw barrier 19 and have no luck. That's just the game. And if you can control that side of it, it makes life a hell of a lot easier around home anyway.
It's one of those things you never want to be front page of the Herald Sun, especially for the Spring Carnival, because that's nearly the end of your preparation, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, pretty much.
If they ring you and ask, you're just like, no, please, not us.
No, don't be the one with the lady dressed up with the cup or whatever, because they did that with Ayrton in the Stradbroke actually. They did that, got Miss Universe in, and I said that's a kiss of death. That's
he had 19 as well, but but that's okay.
Yeah.
Rollerdice.com.au?
Rollerdice.com.au. Get on there. There's a few shares in horses left. We've bought some nice horses this year. Some that have got a bit of a pedigree, some that haven't. We've had a few nice horses going around lately. It's not all just about Ayrton and other profiteers and that. There's plenty of other nice horses. I think Copperfield won it somewhere on the Cranbourne. Yeah, he's a nice enough horse and one to follow. And there was another nice horse that won at Bendigo. Got a couple starting on the weekend that we think will be okay, and there's a few young ones coming through as well, so hopefully the colours are out there and winning some more races.
Back to their harness racing and our roots. Yep. Can syndications work in harness racing, and should harness racing involve?
Well, yeah, they can. You've just got to regulate it. So it works for the thoroughbred industry because obviously there's so many more people go through, and it's a bigger industry, but it works because it's regulated, so it's controlled by a regulator. So we're governed by Racing Victoria and ASIC. So, when we syndicate a horse, it's not we just don't go to the sales and buy it and then just call up mates and say, do you want to jump into it? We've got to do product disclosure statements up, so they know where the money's going and how it's done, and people that come into the horses know that their money's safe, and they know that they're regulated, and that if you're buying a share in a horse, that's your share in a horse. You know that the money's not getting redirected in other areas and stuff like that. You know that you get all the privileges that come along with it. You know that you have to be checked out with Racing Victoria, so we have to get driver's licences and everything like that when a new owner comes in, so that the Racing Victoria know what type of owners are coming in. So they're doing all that kind of stuff. So if you want to go down that track and regulate it properly and all that kind of stuff, it could definitely work. It's just whether people are really prepared to get in, and people are probably going to have to make a few losses before they actually make it work. So it's not going to work overnight.
And back to what you said, get around the right people around you, because that was one of the things that I've taken out from it. Like Weary basically saying, listen, it's fine. We get through this because you've got enough horses and all the rest of people to back you and go from there. So, but also that can go pear-shaped as well. So if you've not got the right people around you that are saying, we'll get out of this, you've got to be careful as well, don't you?
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah, you've got to, if someone rings up, I'm looking to get a share in a horse. My first question is, what do you want out of it? And if someone says, I want it as an investment or make money, I say, sorry, this is not.
Go somewhere else.
Go for somewhere else. But the perfect owner we had another owner come in the other day, and he's like, we're just we've moved to wherever, and we just want to meet new people and have some fun. So that's what you want to hear. They just take a small share in a horse, they meet some new people, and there's some friendship groups in Roll the Dice that you'd never know. Like there's 35-year-olds that are going out for dinner with 65-year-old people, that still do it now, that were in Mahuda or whatever other horse, Crone and that. They're all really good friends. So that is the idea of it, and you can go to the races and have some fun, and you can see people at their best and worst as well.
Definitely. Hornet, you almost have that picture about 4 times. Put it there so you could see it too.
Yep.
Roulette? Or was it it was just that roll the dice? Let's roll the dice.
It was just roll the dice. It was pretty much just roll the dice, and then I liked the royal blue, the red. I don't know why that. And we just I was the Montesino dice actually. The Crown, I probably shouldn't say that, but Montesino dice. So we just whacked it on. It was just literally roll the dice. We didn't think it was going to be as big as what it is now, and it has its drawbacks a little bit, because you send your email out, Roll the Dice Racing, you might go to spam because people think it's a gambling thing or something like that. But that started off that way. But anyway, it's a bit of fun, and you roll the dice when you go into a horse. It's not like you're gonna it's not going to work every time.
No. Steve, thank you very much, mate.
Thanks, Paul.
Great to catch up with you. Well done for everything you guys are doing too. I think you're doing a bloody terrific job, and I enjoy watching it from afar. Don't own a share. Anyone wondering? Don't own a share. I'm too tight for that, so don't worry about that. But well done, and thank you very much for giving me a bit of time, mate, and a bit of insight as well.
No, thanks for your time. Thank you.